So here's our hinge plate, the same hinge plate we've been beaten up on over the past couple weeks. And you're probably really familiar with it. And what we've done, it's kind of the more developed one, where we have our linear feature over here, and then we have a circular feature pattern, which moves out around. I added some new stuff in here. I added some holes. They're going to be centered between the edge of the circle over here, or ellipse, and over here to the edge over here, or that corner. We call those corner holes. In a way, what we're trying to do is we're trying to set up a model here that we can demonstrate design tables. And what design tables do, it allows us to create configurations in a configuration manager by using existing configurations that are generated inside of an Excel spreadsheet. And then we could take cells or rows in the Excel spreadsheet and copy those, change the values in there, close the Excel spreadsheet, and it creates new configurations. So it's a lot quicker way of creating configurations using that Excel spreadsheet, because it's a lot easier to change values in cells to do that. So I'm going to show you how to do that. What we had to do is we had to make modifications to our model first in order to put that together. Okay, so let's walk through the model a little bit and see what we did and what we need to do. So from the very top, we started making some changes, and now we have kind of a problem down here with our circular feature pattern. But let's take a rollback bar, take a look at our base plate. Let's make some changes here. What we're going to do is we're going to make some changes here so that we can make our hinge plate initially not square, but rectangular. So we can make a bunch of configurations that are rectangular in shape rather than all square. So if you go to our sketch number 1 up here, our brass plate up here, we made this line up here representing the top of the back of the hinge plate, and this line equal. But let's do this. Let's go ahead and put a different dimension on that. We're going to make that maybe 4. So a 4 by 5 inch, and we're going to go ahead and rebuild that. I know we're going to get some errors. The center hole, we did something a little bit different here. We took out the circle, and now we put in an ellipse. So we made this point and that point horizontal to each other, and then we made that 3/4 of an inch from the edge over here to one of these points, to each one of these points. So as the hinge plate stretches, so does the ellipse, but it still is about 3/4 of an inch from the edge. So that works out pretty good. We're going to rebuild that. Next guy down here is our rounded cut, our hinge round on the left, not the cut, but the hinge round. Does have the cut in the middle for the center of the pin for the hinge. And then we have our cut on the left-hand side, and then we created a linear pattern of that cut only. So once we did that, then we went ahead and did that circular feature pattern all the way around it, and it looks like all we have over here is this little piece. So what happened there? Well, what happened is we're trying to revolve around a place where there should be an axis, but not with that ellipse cut in here. There's no axis associated with that, like what we had with the circle when the circle was in here. So we probably don't need that. We're not going to do a circular pattern, because even if we did have an axis in the middle, we could actually make one if we wanted to. We're going to take that cut and actually put it in the middle of our feature over here in the middle of the plate, and that's probably not going to work out very well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that circular feature pattern, and we're going to go ahead and delete it. So what we want to do is we want to be able to maybe mirror these items over here on the right hand side. Or maybe we can put them up here on the top, but I think for demonstration we're just going to put them over here on the right. So let's do this. It's underneath a linear pattern. If you don't have mirror over here, we can go ahead and choose mirror. We're going to choose the right plane for the face over here. And the features we're going to mirror is going to be the round on the left, the cut on the left, and probably the hinge cut pattern too. We may not need the hinge cut, because I think the pattern is going to have that, but if you go to the green check mark, there we have it. Now we have the hinge items over here on the left as well as on the right. And then I created something extra I called corner holes. So we have the capacity with these corner holes to, we can put them in there, and we can suppress them too. So as part of the design table presentation or demonstration here, so I'm going to show you not only how to configure certain dimensions, but we're going to take some items and turn them on and off. We're going to create various configurations to show all those things. So, oops, what happened here? So we have an error over here. Let's see what we did. It's probably in that sketch. And so it's not really quite picking up that corner over here. So we're going to go ahead and take that point over here and the edge of that ellipse. We're going to make that coincident, and that should do that. So that drives the rest of these. All these other circles are equal to this one. and then they're either vertical or horizontal to each other as they appear on the screen. So if we rebuild that, that should be okay. And just to double check that, let's go ahead and take these values in here and maybe change it. Let's make that 3 instead and see if it still rebuilds. Okay, it looks like it does. And again, we can take that sketch, rotate it a little bit, get these values in here, and maybe make that a silly number 7 and make that really long. Okay, so that proposes, or that shows just yet another problem in here. We made that cut for that linear pattern. Let's go ahead and redo that a little bit. Right now, all we have in here are 5 instances, but we can probably put in here something, a lot of them, like maybe 20 or 30 of them, to ensure that when we make really long hinges in here, that it's still going to consider those cuts. So as long as it cuts something here in SolidWorks, the rest of that pattern, the rest of that feature can cut nothing out here, which typically SolidWorks does not like to do. But as long as you're cutting something in here, I think it's going to be okay. So let's go to the green check mark, and now we're okay with that. Okay, our next step is to create some configurations. So it's from those configurations that the design table is going to go ahead and do its work. It's going to go ahead and create within Excel, the template it needs in order to create these configurations. But we have to start it first. So before we do that, we want to make sure that all these items in here in a Feature Manager tree are adequately labeled, because we're going to see these names come out later if we use those as part of the configuration, and the design tables are going to be driving it. So I'm going to go ahead and rename my indescript mirror and actually call that my hinge cut mirror, just to be safe. So we're going to call it hinge cut and then mirror. And let's go to the configuration manager and let's go ahead and create some configurations. So with the default configuration, we're probably just going to go ahead and leave that. And we're going to right click on the top. We're going to go ahead and add a configuration. We're going to call this 4x4 for a 4x4 part. And just go to the green check mark. So we're going to keep our names pretty simple because it helps us navigate through Excel a little bit better. And once we do that, let's go to our Feature Manager. Let's go and make some changes in here to our Sketch 1. Right click on that, go to Edit Sketch. We're going to double click in this dimension. We're going to get that value in here. And now we're going to go ahead and put in that value 4. But this little box over here, kind of like a box, is pull down arrow. If we click on that, it gives us an option. We can go to this configuration, which is yes. All configurations, probably not. We're going to create more. We don't want it to be 4 for all of them. Or we can specify the configuration. But this configuration right now is probably the easiest, so we're going to go ahead and select that. That's one way to do it. We're going to go to the green check mark. And same thing over here, we're going to make that 4. And then go to the green before we do that, this configuration, and then green check mark. And now we're going to go ahead and rebuild that. And if we go back to the default configuration, it's got the original value, and then the 4x4, it's got the new value. Let's create another configuration. Let's right click on this. We're going to add a 5x6. So 5x6, and we're going to keep everything else the same, just to keep it simple for now. Go to the green check mark. Now it says here that the appearance of the material is different than the existing appearance. Would you like to link display states to configurations? Show the material appearances. Yes. Yeah, we want to do that. We're going to go to yes. We want to make sure that all the material, the way it looks in the original configuration, appears that way in all subsequent configurations. So we're going to go to yes. So now we have that placed. Here's another way of changing those values. We can go and if we click on this line over here, which is part of that sketch that's actually showing, if we click on that line, just rotate that a little bit, it's going to show us some values in here. If we were to right click on that value and go to configure dimension, now we get this little dialog box. And now we're going to go ahead and put a different value in here. So for the 4x4, we're going to keep that default value. We're going to keep that. For this one, we're going to type in 6. And then we're going to go to OK. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to click on it. It doesn't have to be that line. It could be any line in here. Just rotate that a bit. We get that dimensional value. We're going to configure that dimension. And for the 5x6, we're going to make that 5 too. So we're going to make that 5. So the original one was 7. 4x4 is still going to remain at 4. And this one's going to be 5x6. And that value here that we're changing is going to be for 5. We're going to go to OK. So now we have that. So we have our 4x4 and our 5 on this end, 6 in the back, 5x6 configuration. Okay, so now we're going to create some derived configurations. This is going to be a little bit different. We're going to go ahead and suppress and unsuppress an element in each one of these. So for the 4x4, let's go ahead and click on that, and then right click on that, we're going to add a derived configuration. So we're going to keep the 4x4 elements in here, but now we're going to call this 4x4, and then no corner hole. So no corner hole. So this name is actually going to appear in our design table when we create that. If we go to the green check mark, now we're going to go to our feature manager. We're going to take our corner hole and we're going to right click on that and we're going to suppress it. So now if we go back and double check our configurations, our 4x4 should be there. If we double click on that, now we have the holes. 4x4 without the holes is there. And then the 5x6, we're going to do something very similar. We're going to right click on that and add derived configuration. We're going to call this 5x6, and then no corner hole for this one either. So the same one for this. If we go to the green check mark, now let's go ahead and double check that. So for the 5x6, got the corner hole in there. This one doesn't, so the parent one does not. The child one does, and you know, they're still there. The parent one does too, but the child one is supposed to not have those holes. So we're going to do the same thing as we did to the 4x4. We're going to right click on this, and we're just going to suppress it while we're in that configuration. So now we're in that configuration. Now the holes are gone. 4x4 with the 4x4 with the holes missing. They're gone there too. And now we're ready, I believe, to create that design table. Alright, so now that we have configurations here and derived configurations, let's create our design table. A couple of ways of doing this. One way is go up to Insert, scroll down here to Tables, and we want to put in a design table. What it does is it opens up our Properties Manager. We're going to go ahead and select our different options in here. We're really going to just stick with the default settings in here. So we're going to do Auto Create, which is selected by default, and just go to the green check mark, and what that does is it takes us over here eventually to the Configuration Manager and puts in our table over here. But it also puts in like a little mini Excel spreadsheet right in front of us in SolidWorks. And we can spread that out a little bit, maybe take a look at this a little bit closer, maybe scroll this over, and we can see what's in here. So it talks about our part up here, our part name up here, design table 4, and then it has our part name up here. And then we have our default configuration up here. That's there is on our first row. And then we have our 4x4 and our derived configuration, our 4x4 with no corner hole. Then our 5x6 and a 5x6 with no corner hole. And then other qualifiers over here. So this is how it looks. This is our display state over here. And it's got a display state color, which is that yellow color you might see in brass. And then the part number has got a $D on it if it's just a regular part. If it's a derived part, it's got a $P for a parent, and it's got the parent name over here, 4x4. And over here is where the real meat of the design table is. These are the values that can be changed. So if you remember, default values over here is going to be 3 inches in that dimension over here, and then 7 in the back. So it's got those dimensions in here. And if you look at this, the way this is described, it's D2 for dimension 2 at sketch number 1. So our sketch number 1 in our feature manager over here is going to have 2 dimensions. We put in our second dimension, which is the one back here, which is a 3-inch one, right? This is a 7-inch one. Dimension 1 was a 7-inch one. Dimension 2 is over here, so I had that backwards initially. So dimension 1 was the first dimension we put in there, and then we made this side equal to it initially. But right now dimension 1 is going to be 7. That's the long dimension. The short dimension over here is number 3. And then the state of the corner holes over here. So the state over here is either unsuppressed, a U, or blank, or S. And if it has S in there, which means it's suppressed, so on our derived configuration over here it's suppressed, so the holes aren't going to show. And over here it's going to be suppressed also, so on our 5x6 no corner hole it's suppressed here too. It happens to be depressed over here in our default configuration too. So if we don't make any changes over here, or if we do, it's going to go ahead and update that. But if we just click off here to the side, it'll close that Excel window, and then we'll be right back to SolidWorks. Now you're going to see a change over here. Take a look at how our configuration manager is going to change. We have a new table in here, but now these little square icons that we see over here, which define the configurations as they are right now, they're going to turn into X. So we could have configurations over here that are outside of the design table, and those that are going to be driven by the design table, and those driven by the design table are going to have an X next to them, an X icon. So let's go ahead and click out here, and then the design table will update, and now we have those X's over here, and it shows us everything we have. So the default configuration up here at the very top, it does have those holes, so it wasn't suppressed. It didn't say that they were suppressed. Then our 4x4 without holes. Oh, that's the 4x4 one. Okay, the default one's down here. So let's go ahead and double click on that. So there's our 7 by 3 inch dimension. And again, the holes are showing here, even though it didn't show it being suppressed. Then we have our 5x6 with the holes, and a 5x6 without the holes. Holes are suppressed, says no corner holes. Same thing with the 4x4. That has the no corner holes in there. For that derived configuration, a regular configuration does have those holes, so it's not suppressed. So let's go back to the table and see what changes we made. If we go back to Edit Table, and we can do Edit Table in a new window, that says it actually opens up Excel for us, and we can see that a little bit better. So now we have a little bit more flexibility. SolidWorks is open, and Excel is open too. And we can take the Control key and zoom in on this a little bit and kind of see some of these a little bit better. So the default configuration now is in the very top, whereas in SolidWorks it's on the bottom in the configuration manager. And now we have those U's and S's, so it kind of updated the table. So now we have two ways we can update our SolidWorks model. We can update our configurations within SolidWorks. If we do everything right, it'll update over here in our Excel spreadsheet for the design table. And if we do it right, we can take these elements in our Excel spreadsheet and actually copy them and make new cells. As long as we fill in everything correctly in here, it's going to go ahead and regenerate or generate those configurations for us that are driven by the design table. Okay, so here comes the fun part. We're going to go ahead and take this Excel spreadsheet while we have it open, and we're going to make some changes to it. So let's go ahead and take these two cells in here, and let's go ahead and copy those down here. So if you take the Control key while you take those cells and just drag it down, now we're going to go ahead and rename this. We're going to call this 6x7. And we're going to take this cell over here and copy it over there. And we're going to take this cell over here and copy it down here. And we're going to call that no. And we're going to go ahead and copy this over here. So we're going to go ahead and copy that because I'm not as fast as a typer as you might be. And we're going to call this one 6x7 no corner hole too. So 6x7. So these are just descriptions in here. 6x7. So because we change these things, isn't going to do anything. If we don't change these values over here, then it's just not going to update. It's not going to do anything for us. So we're going to go ahead and change this 6x7. This has got to change over here because now we're telling it the parent over here is going to be this one. So whatever values in here that are driving this are going to be down here, except for the one item that we're going to go ahead and suppress. That is going to be the corner hole. These values have to change here too. We can't keep the same values up here, otherwise it's not going to create that. So we're going to make this instead of 5x6 or 6x5, we're going to create that. We're going to make that 7, and this one's 6. Now I believe we might be able to take this cell over here, move that out of the way, and just so it isn't so confusing, move this over here. Maybe change the order a little bit so it comes in, so it looks a little bit better. So now what we're expecting out here is dimension 1 of sketch 1, and then dimension 2 of sketch 1 is going to come right after that. So it's going to match over here the order that we have these numbers. So if we do that, if we go to the X up here in the upper right hand corner, it's going to close out Excel for us. And over here it tells us it's created two different configurations, two new ones, a 6x7 and a 6x7 no corner hole. If we go to OK, now we have that. We have our 6x7 and our 6x7 no corner hole. So let's see what that does. So there's a 6x7 and then our no corner hole for the same value. And of course the default's down here at the bottom. Yeah, so that's how we do that. So that's how you create your design table, and that's how you make your changes in it. You can do that within Excel, within SolidWorks. If you were to right click on that, go to Edit Table, or you can go to Edit Table in New Window. You get to edit that outside of SolidWorks in its own Excel file. Okay, so we had a lot of fun with the Excel table in that last one. Let's go ahead and have some more fun. We're going to make this even more productive than we did before. So let's go ahead and edit that table in a new window. And let's go ahead and copy one of those cells, get it all back, put it back behind SolidWorks. Let's go ahead and take one of these cells. We're going to take the 4x4, just a regular 4x4 with that corner hole visible. And we're going to go ahead and delete this description over here. Just keep things simple. In regard to the display state, we're going to keep everything else. So we're going to take that, we're going to copy that down by one cell. What you do is you grab the edge of Excel where that little square is, and we're going to drag that down. So this says it's going to be 4x5. So we're going to go ahead and make that a 5x5. Let's go ahead and grab these two and copy that down just a few more down. See if it picks up that 6x6, which it doesn't. So we're going to go ahead and just physically enter that. And we're going to make this 7x7. And of course we need to come over here and change these values too. So these didn't change. 4x4 is going to change. We're going to make this 5 and then 5. And then this one 6 and 7 and 6 and 7 to get those changed. And let's go ahead and copy that down a couple more times. Yeah, went ahead and picked up the 8 and 9. So we're going to make this 8x8. And this one 9x9. Once you do that, and I think everything else we can keep the same. And just for the final, let's take the 7x7, we'll make that unsuppressed. We'll put an S in there. Up. We're going to have to go and retry it. It doesn't like that lowercase s. It's going to want an uppercase s. So we want to make sure we get that, keep that correct. So we're going to go to the X up here. Go ahead and close Excel. And now it shows us the configurations that we just created. 5x5, 6x6, 7x7, 8x8, 9x9. Now it adds them into the table over here, and let's go ahead and double check our work. So we have a 6x6, which is kind of hiding up here, and that's unsuppressed. 6x7 is over there. 7x7, now those corner holes are suppressed, as we asked it to be. We can go ahead and change that if we wanted to. And we can continue on down here, and it gets continually bigger. And now we can kind of move our furniture around a little bit too, as a way to organize our configuration manager. So we're not going to go through all the options up here, but we can rearrange furniture a little bit and try to get things lined up the way we like them. So if we do all of our square ones up here, maybe put those on top, we can do that. 4x4 by 5x5 by 6x6 and so on and so forth. We can arrange the furniture that way. And we'll put 7x7 up here too. That's one way to do it. But I don't think it's going to rearrange the furniture in our Excel spreadsheet. But as long as we have it corrected this way, I think we'll be okay. And 7x7, so we're looking for 8x8. And I'm not going to go through all the options in here too. You can actually play around with this. But when we do that, if we go to our design table and go to edit table, a new window, now you can see what we've done. Really hasn't changed anything. It hasn't changed the order at all. It's still the way we had it before. But the configuration manager is a little bit different. So we rearrange the furniture over here in our feature manager just to make it a little bit easier to follow and read. So one more thing too. One last thing. We could add a configuration in here. We're going to make this one a 3x3. And we're going to go to the green check mark once we created that. And we're going to change some values in here. So if we go back to our feature manager, go to our sketch 1, right click on this. Let's go ahead and maybe configure that dimension and see what that looks like. So 3x3, we're going to make that 3, which is okay. And then we're going to go to this dimension over here and change that value. Right click on that, configure the dimension. And we're going to make that one 3 over here. So this time we're going to have to change it. We're going to go to OK. So there's our 3x3, kind of handsome. And if we go back to our configuration manager, go to the design table, edit table, a new window, should give us a dialog box over here, and is asking us, if you take a look at over here at our 3x3, it's got the old symbol for the configuration. It's got that box over here as opposed to the X. Now we have a choice in here. We can take that 3x3 and make that driven by the design table. It's kind of added to the design table. Or we can ignore it if we just go to OK. If we want to include it, we can click on that and go to OK. If we don't want to include it, then we can cancel that, and it'll go ahead and not include that into the design table. So we're going to go ahead and include it. Go to OK. Now it's going to open up that design table for us. Now we have our 3x3 in here. So again, we're going to go ahead and close this. Go back to our configuration manager. If we're going to put that at the very top underneath the default, we could do that. But it won't change a thing on our design table. So that's configurations and design tables. And of course, design tables will help drive the configurations the way we have it set up. So what we did, just to summarize everything that we did, we cleaned up our model and we created a different feature in here called the corner holes that we could turn on and off, that we can suppress and unsuppress as we created our configurations. Created two different configurations in there, a square configuration and a rectangular one, and two derived configurations where those corner holes were suppressed or unsuppressed. Once we did that, we created our design table, which helped drive that. Then we went back into the design table and just copied some Excel files, renamed some things, put in some different values in there, and we actually created some configurations outside of the design table. So that's design tables and how they coordinate with your configuration manager and the configurations that are being created here in your SolidWorks part.